It was a cold November morning when he came home early from work, only to find his wife in bed with his own brother. The shock and betrayal were unbearable. He recorded the entire scene, capturing every moment of their deceit. His family, incredibly, sided with the adulterers, casting him aside. He left, but vowed to return stronger. 10 years later, he came back, ready to exact his revenge. This is the story of betrayal, planning, and ultimate justice. It was freezing cold that November day, and Sam was already feeling awful because of a bad cold. Working outside in the chilly weather made him feel even worse. He could have stayed home like many others, but that wasn't his style. Sam worked for his family's company and always gave his best. He believed if something was worth doing, it was worth doing well. He only called in sick when he physically couldn't work, which had happened only twice, both times because he was in the hospital. By 10 a.m., he felt like his body was about to give up. Realizing he couldn't continue, Arturo, his foreman, practically forced him into his truck, saying, "Go home, Sam. You're no use here, and you'll just get everyone else sick." So Sam drove home and parked on the street in front of his house because his brother's truck was in the driveway. This was odd for 3 reasons. First, his brother should have been at work. Second, Jimmy had no reason to be in Sam's house without him. Third, Sam was covering for Jimmy, who was supposed to be meeting a potential client in a nearby town. Sam couldn't think of any acceptable reason for Jimmy's truck to be there. He entered the house quietly and climbed the stairs to the bedroom. As he got closer, he heard sounds he never wanted to hear. "Oh God, yes, Jimmy." It was Camila's voice coming from the bedroom. Sam's suspicions were confirmed. He thought angrily, switching his phone to video mode and pointing it at the doorway. "Jimmy made me cover for him so he could be with my wife. Let's see how he likes it when I kick his ass." None of the lovers noticed as the angry husband silently entered the room and stood at the foot of the bed. After a few moments, Sam kicked Jimmy, changing everything in an instant. Camila turned and saw the fury on her husband's face. Sam held back, realizing any more aggression could land him in jail. Jimmy, in agony on the floor, was terrified. He knew he stood no chance against his younger brother. 2 years ago at Thanksgiving, Jimmy always knew how to handle Sam. But things had changed. Jimmy, working mostly at a desk, had become weaker, while Sam, working outside with the crews, had grown stronger. Jimmy used to joke that as the older brother, he'd always be able to handle Sam. But that day, Sam had challenged him to an arm wrestling match in front of Jimmy's wife. Overconfident, Jimmy had let his guard down, but things were different now. "All right, it's time to show my little brother who's in charge again." Jimmy grinned at his wife. Jimmy and Sam walked over to the table and sat down. "Oh no," Jimmy muttered. No matter how hard Jimmy tried, he couldn't budge. Sam just sat there, smiling. His biceps flexed, but Jimmy knew Sam wasn't using all his strength. He looked at Sam's face and saw Sam was just messing with him. Jimmy realized he was about to be embarrassed in front of his wife and whole family. He saw in Sam's eyes all the payback for the teasing and bullying he'd done to his younger brother. Sam was clearly enjoying this little revenge. He even lowered Jimmy's hand halfway and checked his watch before moving it back to the starting position. The embarrassment was complete when Sam yawned and effortlessly pinned Jimmy's hand to the table. After this, Jimmy swore to get back at him. The truth is, Jimmy deserved it. He had bullied his younger brother all his life. No wrongdoing goes unpunished. Jimmy got divorced before the next Thanksgiving. His wife hired a private detective and caught Jimmy cheating. 6 months later, Camila and Sam got married. My father, Jacob, started his own construction company when I was 3. It was a corporation, but all the shares were owned by family members. My mother, Evelyn, started as an accountant. I had one older brother, Jimmy, and a younger sister, Stephanie, who preferred to be called Steph. For the most part, we were happy. My parents loved us and we loved each other. Jimmy was a bit of a bully and rarely missed a chance to outdo me as the big brother. Steph was the family favorite. She was the youngest and a girl, so my parents spoiled her. She was difficult to deal with. So my older brother was the obvious heir, and my sister was the spoiled brat. I was the middle child. My parents loved me, and I loved them. They didn't really have a favorite, at least they didn't think so. But my older brother was still the clear heir, and my younger sister was the favorite. As for siblings, My brother was always the big brother and never let me forget it. My younger sister saw me as a handy servant. My parents didn't realize they were being unfair when they insisted I drive her around after I got my license. It didn't matter that my older brother didn't have to do the same when he got his license. So I understand you might think I'm complaining or feeling sorry for myself. That's not the case. These are just the facts. I knew my place and the situation. I wasn't mad at my parents yet. That's just how it worked. Everyone has their place in the family. I was the middle child. I started to understand this. My older brother would eventually take over the business. That's how it was. My little sister would be taken care of. That's how it worked. I was the middle child. I had to find my own way. I knew it. So here I was, married for almost a year and a half, finding my older, divorced, cheating brother with my wife in my house, in my bed. There's no need to go into detail here. Jimmy grabbed his clothes and ran out. It took Camille 20 minutes to pack and leave, too. The house was mine before we met, so it wasn't part of any shared property. We had a prenup, so I just signed power of attorney with my lawyer, laid out my terms, and left town. My lawyer sent me the final divorce decree in 6 months. It looked like everything went smoothly. It didn't. Of course, I left town, but I didn't go far. I went to talk to my parents. I showed them the evidence. They told me to get over it. Jimmy would take over the company, and I needed to accept it for family harmony. My sister agreed. Sure, Jimmy was a jerk, but that was just a minor issue on the path to a greater good. If I fought them, I would lose. Let it go and be happy for Jimmy and Camila. To make it worse, Camille moved in with Jimmy that same night. I was told not to make waves. Jimmy was the chosen one. It was clear I was alone in my struggle. I vowed never to return until I had my revenge. Look, Jimmy will take over the company in a few years. Yes, we're disappointed with what he did, but we won't disown him. Deal with it and get in line. Don't make us choose between you two. He is the heir. Deal with it. My parents told me, my sister, even the annoying one joined in, Sam. So she had sex with your brother. So what? She just decided to change. Actually, I can't blame her. Just come to your senses and make sure Ramsey's report is on your desk by Monday morning. When I finally confronted Camille, things got worse. It started about a month after our wedding. She admitted it. She also said that most times I covered for Jimmy, it was so he could go and have sex with her. To make it worse, she told me she was pregnant and the baby was Jimmy's. I was an innocent victim, but my whole family sided with them. I watched as my family welcomed Jimmy and Camille with open arms. I watched as everyone pretended I never had a relationship with my own wife. I listened as my family fawned over Camille and congratulated Jimmy on becoming a father and giving my parents a grandson. All this while, I was quietly pushed aside. My divorce was barely mentioned and only talked about as it related to the timing of Jimmy and Camille's marriage. I was invited to family dinners and parties, but it was clear this was more out of duty than because I was wanted. As long as I showed up for work and did my job, that was all they really cared about. The last time I saw my family for the next 10 years was Thanksgiving. I arrived late, walked in, and began my greetings. As you can guess, they were far from pleasant. Just as quickly, they showed me the door. I swore 2 things. First, I would leave and never consider these people family again. Second, one day I would return and destroy them for what they did. This was my family. These people were supposed to love and respect me. I did everything I could to be a good son and brother. But they turned their backs on me when they should have hugged and comforted me. Somehow I will return and bring their world down around them. What? Show them the same mercy they showed me? Never. 2 weeks later. "Damn it! Where the hell is Samuel?" came a cry from Jacob's office. "What's wrong?" Evelyn asked worriedly, rushing in. True, she hadn't seen her middle child in a while, but she just assumed he was still sulking about what happened. She felt a little sorry for him, but she couldn't go against her eldest son. The Geraldton project is a month behind schedule, and the Mandelson building inspector is demanding that we redo all of last week's work. This will cost us at least $50,000 and another 2 weeks to fix. Why did Samuel let this happen? Jacob shouted. First of all, Stephanie said, entering the office, Geraldton is Jimmy's project, not Sam's, so I don't understand why you're blaming him for this. Secondly, I haven't seen or heard from Sam in the last 2 weeks. He's not answering his calls, and his foreman said he hasn't seen him either. Sam knows he has to cover Jimmy on this project. Damn it. He's been working on this for the last 6 months, so he should be used to it. Find him and tell him I'm waiting for him in my office so I can kick his ass first thing in the morning. It's time for him to stop whining and get to work." The next morning, an anxious Stephanie was in her father's office. She had sent more than 20 text messages and left several voicemails on Sam's phone. She even went to Sam's house to see if she could talk to him. Now she had to explain to her angry father and the rest of her family what she had found. "Where the hell is Samuel? I told you he should have been here first thing this morning, but I didn't see him." Jacob frowned as he looked around the room at his wife, eldest son, Camille, and daughter. "Well, he left," she stammered. "Left? What do you mean left?" asked her mother. "I mean he left. I don't know where, but he's gone. He doesn't answer text messages or phone calls. He doesn't respond to voicemails. Yesterday I went to his house and found it empty. There was a cleaning crew there getting it ready for new residents. It looks like he's renting it out now," she explained. "Are you trying to tell me he abandoned his family?" Jacob practically screamed. Stephanie had a restless night after her discoveries. Not being able to sleep made her remember many things that had happened and been said over the past few years. It was hard to sleep as her mind replayed how everyone treated her brother. "No," she said softly. "I think he knows his family abandoned him." I joined the Army Corps of Engineers when I left home. I went to college and worked part-time until I graduated. I got a degree in civil engineering and an MBA. Jimmy was supposed to lead the company, but I would also be on the executive team. That was the plan. But now, I had other plans. My new plan was great, and today it would come to fruition. I couldn't help but smile as I watched my little sister enter the building across the street. She looked at me, but she didn't recognize me. I had changed a lot over the past 10 years. I had some time, so I thought back to those years. After joining the Army, I found myself rebuilding infrastructure in a desert. I used my free time for training, including weapons training, and I even hired Special Forces guys to teach me hand-to-hand combat. It took 6 months before I was promoted to captain. My commanding officer encouraged me to stay in the Army. I thought about it seriously. We were heading to a new place when an improvised explosive device went off as we drove past. Our Hummer was destroyed, but we survived most of the blast and shrapnel. I was hurt, but it didn't seem severe at first. It hurt like hell, though. Shots rang out around me as I tried to get out of the wreck. I noticed the lady we were escorting, an MP, was seriously wounded. Her leg was badly damaged, and she was losing a lot of blood. I grabbed the first aid kit to help her when someone screamed that the car was on fire. Holding the first aid kit, I unfastened her seatbelt and managed to get her out of the car and drag her to some cover. I slowed her bleeding while gunfire raged around us. After doing all I could for her, I took up my rifle and tried to keep the enemy away from us. I didn't care how much blood I was losing as I knelt next to her, shooting at anyone who approached. 20 minutes later, I was exhausted. I heard helicopters overhead, and my body finally gave in as I saw the paramedics running toward us. "Sons of bitches! Load these two onto an evacuation helicopter immediately!" I heard someone scream, and then everything went dark. My eyes opened to a pair of green eyes, surrounded by the face of an angel with shiny red hair. "I am in heaven," I muttered. The angel's eyebrows furrowed, then her face brightened. "Why do you think so?" she asked in a sweet voice. "I was sure I would survive, but apparently I died." "Why do you think you're dead?" "Well, I've never died before, so I can't be sure. But when someone wakes up and sees an angel looking at them, it seems like a clear sign they've died." Her face brightened as she started laughing. "Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm far from an angel. Actually, I'm a lawyer." I smiled. "All this means is that I'm in a different place, but I don't mind. As long as I can keep seeing you." "Well, if it's up to me, you'll see me often. Luckily for both of us, it won't be in hell. You, my brave soldier hero, are still alive. You're in a hospital in Germany. You were treated at the base and then brought here." "Fine. Since you said you're a lawyer and not a nurse, who are you and why are you here with me?" She laughed again. I really liked her laugh. "No, I'm not here to sue the rebels. I'm here to thank you for saving my sister's life. My name is Rebecca Caulfield. My sister June was the MP you pulled out of the Hummer and gave first aid to. Everyone told me that if you hadn't done what you did, she would have died." "So how is she? Will she be okay?" I asked. "She'll be fine. They saved her leg, but she will always have a slight limp." That's how I met Becca and her sister. Rebecca spent her days in Germany dividing her time between me and her sister. I decided not to return to the army and was discharged with a Purple Heart and Silver Star. When I returned to the States, I continued to see Rebecca. We got along very well and started dating. I told her everything about my past and how my ex-wife and family betrayed me. I also shared my plan for revenge, to start my own construction company and compete with them. While in the military, I saved money until I had enough to start my plans. Knowing my family's business well, I knew how to steal their clients and best employees. I probably couldn't put them out of business completely, but I could reduce their income significantly. Rebecca thought about it and then smiled slyly. How would you like to actually ruin them? She then shared her plan. I liked it a lot. Rebecca's parents were really rich and very angry at my family for what they did to me. Her older brother was a financial genius. Using a combination of assets, we created a new LLC. Rebecca's father, almost retired, was named president of the company. Her brother was the acting CFO, and Rebecca was the acting CEO. This way, my name didn't appear in the books, even though I ran things. First, we bought a small construction company that was poorly managed. It turned around quickly once I took over. 6 months later, we added another company. By the time we were ready for the big move, we had acquired 5 more companies across the country. Rebecca and I became very close and started dating. Now I sat across the street from my family's business, ready for revenge. Over the years, I became wealthy thanks to my investments and the success of our new company. Rebecca and I got engaged last month. I smiled, waiting to hit my former family. They had no idea what was coming. What they didn't know was that a few specific people had quietly bought every publicly traded stock available. Just a week ago, these investors reached the necessary threshold for our plan to work. Steph was in a bad mood, which was usual for her. She knew almost everyone at the company disliked her. As CFO and the daughter of the board chairman, she thought she could do whatever she wanted. If things got too bad, she would talk to her older brother, the CEO. It was a family company, and anyone who crossed her would soon be looking for a new job. However, today she was upset because of an unscheduled board meeting. This was very unusual. The board usually met only once a quarter, and most meetings happened at the family table. The board of directors only confirmed decisions already made by her parents, brother, and herself. Between the 4 of them and the proxy votes of her absent middle brother, they controlled 60% of the shares. Each family member owned 12% of the shares. A few years ago, the family, minus Sam, who left without a word, decided to expand. They went public to raise capital for the expansion. The family ensured that each member retained a 12% stake, keeping control of 60% of the company. No formal agreement was made with Sam, but his shares were used for voting along with the rest of the family. No one paid much attention since he refused any contact with them. He even refused to come to Jimmy and Camila's wedding after his divorce from her. The family had no idea where he was. After 10 years of silence, they assumed his votes belonged to the family. Steph paused, about to enter the office building. Across the street stood a tall, well-built man. She glanced at him briefly. He seemed familiar. A bus passed by and the figure disappeared. Shrugging, she opened the door and entered the building. Steph was very bored during the meeting. Procedures had to be followed. Though the board had met last month and wasn't supposed to meet again for 2 months, the minutes of the last meeting were read. Updates across various divisions were shared with no changes since last month. Then came new business. I am filing a motion to remove the chairman of the board for gross incompetence and moral failings, said an attractive brunette with a slight limp. Steph noticed fewer people than usual at the meeting. None of the major shareholders were there, just a few small shareholders. The brunette who made the motion, and a blonde woman she had never seen before. "I support this proposal," the blonde shouted. What is going on here? Steph thought. These women were delusional, thinking they could do this. The family had 60% of the votes. This was impossible. The discussion was lively but short. The voting began, and to Steph's shock, Miss Caulfield had 35% of the shared votes. Yes, obviously, since she proposed Miss Jeffers with 4% of the votes. Yes, said the blonde. Again, this was expected since she supported the proposal. There were several more people who voted against it. The calculation reached 1% of shares, So 39% yes, 1% no. And the family with 60% has not yet voted. Of course, Jimmy, me, Mom, and Dad all voted no. After all, Dad was the chairman. 49% no, against 39% yes. Just as Jimmy stood up as Sam's confidant to put us in an advantageous position, the door swung open, and in walked the tall man I'd spotted across the street. "Yes, Samuel Johnson, with 12% of the vote," said my brother, whom I had not seen or heard from in 10 years. That's how quickly our family business was taken away from us and given to our brother, whom we abandoned for our older brother. From that moment on, the meeting went downhill. Samuel was appointed chairman of the board in place of Dad. Jimmy was fired and replaced by the blonde. I was also fired from my position as CFO and replaced by the brunette. None of us ever imagined this scenario. We never bothered with contracts. Therefore, there was no severance pay. We were given 10 minutes to pack our things and leave. All our houses and cars were company property for tax purposes. Sam was nice enough to give us a week to pack up and leave. Except for Jimmy and Camila, they had only 24 hours. Mom, Dad, Jimmy, Camila, and I just sat there stunned while Sam led the meeting. Although we had lost all power in the company, we were still major shareholders and had the right to remain at the meeting. At least we still had our shares and the income from them. As long as the company existed and was profitable, we should be fine. None of us actually had much money in our accounts. Only about $100,000 each for emergencies. Since the company paid for our mortgage, utilities, cell phones, and vehicles, we didn't need much to live. Instead, we agreed to put most of the profits back into the company to grow it. The plan was to cash out later so we could all retire comfortably while still young enough to enjoy it. "Okay," Sam said, taking charge of the meeting. "Any other questions?" "Yes, there is one more issue to discuss," an attractive brunette stated. "SJ Enterprises made a buyout offer. I assume you have already familiarized yourself with the terms. They will buy all available shares if they can acquire at least 51% of the company. Once this is completed, Johnson Construction Inc. will be closed and all assets will be absorbed by SJ Enterprises." "Okay, what about all the employees? We have a lot of good people working here. I don't want them to find themselves unemployed," I said. "Mr. Johnson, all non-managerial employees will continue to work as before. The only difference will be the company name on their checks. Our clients will still work with the same people. All executives will either be fired or transferred to similar positions at SJ Enterprises. I should mention that they asked the chairman of the board, CEO, and CFO to move into the same positions at SJ. Their current chairman, CEO, and CFO will resign." "What about those who do not want to sell their shares?" Sam asked, looking at us intently. "I'm sure there will be those who don't want to sell." "Oh, well. The SJ rep said that once they get 51%, the purchase price of any remaining shares will be drastically reduced. They won't actually need the additional shares. When news comes out about their plan, the value of the shares will plummet. Any holdouts will find their investment gone." "Very good. Is the representative here?" Sam asked. "Yes. She's waiting in the lobby. She wanted to be available as she hoped to start this today. Would you like to call security and ask to have her escorted inside?" Sam called security, and a few minutes later, an absolute goddess strutted through the doors. She was about 5'7", with long, luxurious red hair down to her waist, emerald green eyes, a beautiful face with a light sprinkling of freckles on her thin nose, large breasts, and a thin waist that flared out to nice hips. She wore a charcoal pencil skirt, a matching jacket, and a light pink blouse. Her long, toned legs were covered in silk stockings, and she wore 4-inch Prada heels. I was wondering what was going on with all these attractive women who showed up today to take our company from us. What did Sam have to do with this? It was becoming clear he was part of this plan. We hadn't heard a peep from him for 10 years, and he suddenly shows up today. He then votes for his family to be ousted from the business. So, as I said earlier, we are offering $120 per share for the first 51%. After that, anyone who wants to sell will be offered $2 per share. It's simply not worth more to us once we gain majority control. I missed the first part of what she said and regretted not listening. The drop from $120 per share to $2 per share was catastrophic. Of course, I didn't want to sell, but not selling would be devastating. I quickly stood up and shouted that I wanted to sell. Better get in line early while I could. A dazzling smile appeared on the redhead's face as she turned to me. Certainly, we will be happy to purchase your shares. You are currently fourth in line, so I will make you our offer as soon as I complete the first 3 transactions. My stomach churned as I guessed who the first 3 sellers were. Being fourth was almost the same as being last. I watched as Sam, the blonde, and the brunette all signed agreements to sell their shares. She already had her 51%. All our money was invested in the company. In another 5 years, we planned to sell and cash out, becoming multi-millionaires. Now we'd be lucky to be simply wealthy. We all had to go home to start packing. Security confiscated our cars and office keys before we were allowed to leave. We had to arrange with security to come back the next day to clear out our offices. The blonde announced that she would deny us access to the company servers and deactivate our logins within minutes. It wasn't a big deal because our laptops had been confiscated earlier. The blonde also informed us that our home computers would be taken the next day. She warned that any attempt to delete or corrupt files would lead to serious charges of corporate espionage, fraud, tampering with evidence, and theft. Jimmy was informed that his computer was already confiscated right after the vote to remove Dad from office. Oh, and they had a forensic accountant looking at the books. Sam smiled. The next evening, everyone gathered at their parents' house. Jimmy, Camila, and their 3 children arrived in a van packed with everything they could hastily grab. They would be moving in with Jacob and Evelyn, who agreed on temporary living arrangements for the week. After unloading the truck into the garage, family members gathered around the table to plan for the future. Fine, we need to figure out how to react. We can't just sit back and tolerate this. We need to fight back and take back what is ours, Jacob stated. Great, Evelyn answered. But how can we fight this? Where do we even start? We'll contact our lawyers and begin filing claims. But Dad, we don't have any lawyers. The lawyers work for the company and we no longer control it. We'd have to hire new lawyers and they cost money. We all have accounts where we've been hiding money, but this will be a long legal fight. I need cash to live on until I find another job and get back on my feet, Stephanie said. Maybe it's time for me to visit my little brother, Jimmy chuckled, cracking his knuckles. Camila looked at her husband critically. She had seen her tall, muscular, and confident ex-husband at the boardroom earlier. I would strongly advise against that, she said. It didn't end well for you last time, and now he looks tougher and stronger than ever. Jimmy started to say something, but went quiet. Stephanie listened to the criticism of every idea. Then she heard one that hadn't been mentioned. It was the only thing that had a chance. It wouldn't fix everything, but it might make their situation easier. Maybe we could just go and talk to him, she suggested. The sudden silence was deafening as everyone stared at her as if she had grown a third eye. Maybe if we went and talked to him, asked for forgiveness for how we treated him. Maybe if we begged for mercy, he wouldn't be so harsh. Obviously, he won't take it all back, but maybe if we admitted we were wrong, he might ease our pain enough that we can survive and not be completely destroyed. Pandemonium ensued. You expect me to walk up to him with my tail between my legs and humiliate myself in front of this brat after he abandoned his family? Then comes back 10 years later without a word and stabs us in the back? Are you crazy? I will never bow to that ungrateful bastard, Jacob roared. Seriously, sis? After the way he treated me and my wife before he ran away. And then what he did today. Do you think I could do anything other than find a way to put him back under that rock he crawled out from? Hell no! Jimmy shouted. Even Camila screamed, disgusted at the idea of begging her ex-husband. Jimmy is 10 times bigger than Sam. There's no way I would embarrass myself or my husband by begging this weakling for anything, darling, her mother said in a loving but reproachful tone. I understand what you're thinking, but we need to start a war with the man who attacked our family's well-being. Now is the time to fight back, not admit defeat. No, we will not talk to our new enemy. We will find a way to attack and take back what is ours, she finished, dismissing Steph's idea. The discussion returned to ways to fight back. Steph remained silent. She had already decided what she needed to do for herself. She had to jump off the platform before the train crashed. She realized too late what their loving family had done to her older brother, but by then, Sam had disappeared. She never got the chance to tell him how sorry she was for her words and actions. She had been a self-centered, spoiled child back then. Her realization came 2 weeks too late. June Caulfield looked up when the secretary ushered Stephanie Johnson into her office. The next morning, she noticed that Stephanie was wearing a dark blue pencil skirt, matching jacket, powder-colored blouse, black stockings, and 4-inch heels. Overall, it was a very nice but conservative look. Stephanie's blonde hair was styled professionally, and her makeup was tastefully done. Even though June had heard all the stories about how tough Steph was, she still found her very attractive. Gesturing for her visitor to sit, June began the unexpected meeting. "What can I do for you, Miss Johnson? To be honest, I'm a bit surprised by your visit this morning." "Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people would be surprised to see me here. I actually came to talk to Samuel, but was told he wasn't expected. They suggested you could give him a message." "Maybe, depending on what the message is. As you can probably tell, he really isn't interested in talking to your family. Just so we're clear, I've heard all the stories about you and your family. I don't like any of you much either after the way you treated him." "So you two are close then?" Steph asked, hoping to gather as much information as she could about the new players in this game. Maybe if she could win this woman over and show she truly regretted her actions, she could convince her brother to help her. "Yes, we're close, but probably not as close as you think. We're not dating. We're just very good friends. He's more like a brother to me than anything else." "Oh, could you tell me how you met?" "I could, but it's not really your business right now. Maybe some other time. I'm busy preparing for a company takeover. So what's your message for Samuel?" Steph needed to make June understand she truly regretted her behavior. "Please tell Sam I really need to talk to him. I know how awful my past behavior was, and I'm truly sorry. Unfortunately, I realized it too late after he had already left. Everyone else is trying to figure out how to deal with his actions, but I'm not part of that. I just want to look him in the eye and tell him how sorry I am for how I behaved. Yes, I hope he will show me some mercy, but I'm not asking to be excluded from whatever punishment we face. I just want a chance to have some kind of relationship with him. I want him to know I'm separating from the rest of the family because I realized they were wrong. I don't want anything to do with them anymore. I'm not asking him to trust me. I just want to see and talk to the brother I foolishly threw away." Steph sobbed. June looked at the crying woman and sighed. She had enough experience with former lovers and employees to tell the difference between crocodile tears and real grief. She could tell Steph was sincere. "Fine. Look, Sam's out of town for a few days. He won't be back until Monday. I'll give him your message and see if he can schedule some time for you." "Thank you, I appreciate it." "No problem. How about we meet tonight for drinks and dinner? I don't know anyone here, and I'd like to talk to you more and find out what you expect from all this." Steph was taken aback by the proposal. She found June very attractive and liked women, though she never let her family know. She went to parties and events with guys to keep up the pretense, but whenever she was out of town, she looked for another woman. This would also give her a chance to learn more about June and her relationship with her brother, as well as the blonde and redhead who helped ambush her family. Not that she intended to use this information to help others in their struggles. She wanted to use it to help form a new relationship with Samuel and attract allies to her side. "Tell me more about what you expect," June asked a few hours later at the bar where she and Steph met. "I pretty much said it all before. I just want a new and better relationship with Sam. I know I screwed up and I accept it. I will gladly accept any mercy he decides to show me. But even if he decides to throw me out, I still want to show him that I have changed and want to be a better sister." "How do I know you're not just saying this to get information to use against him?" "Honestly, you don't. You have no reason to trust me, same as Sam. I'm curious what happened to him in the last 10 years. I can see he's important to you, and you have a serious relationship with him. I really want to know more about you and the other two women. If they're important to my brother, they must be important to me. You said you're like a sister to him. That makes you my sister too. Maybe you can teach me how to be a better sister to Sam than I was in the past." "This is an interesting proposal. You're an attractive woman and you seem close to Sam. Why aren't you two dating?" Steph asked, puzzled. June laughed. "There are two reasons for that. First, Sam is already in a relationship. In fact, he's engaged. Second, let's just say you're more my type than Sam." June grinned. This confused Stephanie. "So how did you two meet? I'd really like to know." "We met in the army. He pulled me out of a wrecked car and saved my life. He was also wounded, but not badly. By the way, that's where I injured my leg. My family was very grateful and we sort of adopted him after hearing his story. Oh, wow. We didn't even know he served in the army. He just left without saying a word. Yesterday was the first time we heard from him. Yes, I know, he did it on purpose. I understand. We really didn't treat him very well. So you mentioned he's engaged? Yeah. As soon as he's done here, they'll get married. Can you tell me who she is? Is it the blonde? No, in fact, she's engaged to my older brother. Sam is engaged to my sister. I think it was love at first sight for both of them when Sam woke up in the hospital in Germany. I'd really like to know how he was injured. I would be next to him. Yeah, well, Becca really rushed to take care of him and get him back to health. She's very protective of him. Trust me, you don't want her to think you want to hurt him in any way. She's a tough lawyer, and I've seen her destroy opponents in court. If it goes to trial, she can tear you apart with her bare hands. I've seen it happen several times. Looks like I really need to meet her and make sure I don't get in her way. Actually, you've already met her. And sweetie, you're already on her bad side. Is she the redhead? Yeah, she hates every one of you. It's her you really need to win over. They both got hungry and went to a restaurant next door. The conversation continued as both women learned more about each other. June was careful with her words, not giving any information about Sam's plans. Steph asked about SJ Enterprises, but June refused to answer any questions about it. The meal was over, and the two women were drinking the last of their wine. Okay, June, you said I need to win over your sister Rebecca to have any chance of having any kind of relationship with Sam, Stephanie said, working on this idea throughout the last half of their dinner. Yeah, she is his gatekeeper, June replied. Well, I have a foolproof plan for this. June smiled. Just how are you going to turn my barracuda sister from a demon into the loving sister you claim to be? It's simple. First, I'm going to win you over, and then you're going to win your sister for me. Interesting concept, June grinned. And how do you propose to win me over? I think it will be quite simple. My plan is to take you to my place and entertain you all night long. After that, you'll be too tired tomorrow, so I can continue all day, and also on the weekend. By the time you show up to work on Monday, you'll be ready to tell your sister what an amazing woman I am and that you'd really like her to welcome your new girlfriend with open arms. I understand. So what's to stop me from rejecting your advances and making me believe you're serious about becoming my girlfriend? Two things. First, you mentioned that I am your type, and I believe you are attracted to me. Second, I just told you my biggest secret. None of my family or friends know about my preferences. Nobody even suspects it. This will reveal my secret to the whole world. I've never done this for anyone before. My willingness to reveal my true self should convince you that I am serious. If you have any doubts after this weekend, just watch how my parents and Jimmy disown me when it happens. I already told you I will reject them. This will only prove my intentions. Lord, sister, what happened to you? You look terrible, Rebecca shouted to her little sister when June finally staggered into the office on Monday morning. Severe lack of sleep caused by 3 wonderful days. If you think I look bad, you should see my new girlfriend, June answered. Wow. Okay, so who is this new girlfriend and how did this happen so quickly? Rebecca asked. I'll tell you what. Give me some caffeine and then I need to meet you and Sam for a while. I have some news for both of you. How about in 20 minutes in Sam's office? Certainly. Go have some coffee. You look like you need it. So, June, what am I hearing about the new girl? Sam asked when a shabby-looking June entered his office. Well, I had a surprise visitor on Thursday while you two were out of town. It turned into an amazing dinner and then a full weekend. Now it seems I have an even more surprising friend. Okay, so who is it? Becca asked worriedly. June let the tension build for a minute, looking from her sister to her future brother-in-law and back again. Her name is Stephanie Johnson. She watched their faces as they went from happy and smiling to shocked. Several minutes passed before either of them could utter a word. My sister? Well, sort of, but I did find out some interesting information about her and the rest of your family. Before you get too worked up, I did some research between the time she left my office and the time I met her later that evening. She seemed to come to her senses right after you left. In fact, she is very sorry for how she treated you before. Of course, you don't just take her word for it, even if she had sex with you all weekend. Of course not. And my name is June, not stupid. June giggled as Sam and Rebecca rolled their eyes at the joke. Seriously, I did some research. Several longtime employees commented on how she acted rather sad right after you left. She seemed very unhappy and depressed for a few months and mentioned that she really missed you. Could her friends have lied to help her? I doubt it. Remember Kate? Even she told me about it. Sam remembered the old secretary and accounts receivable. He knew that he and Steph really disliked each other. If Kate said it, then it was probably true, but I'm pretty sure Steph isn't interested in women. Actually, she is. She knows a lot about female relationships. That's one of the things that convinced me. She's coming out to talk to you and try to build a better relationship. She's ignoring the rest of the family. Sounds selfish to me. I think she sees what's coming and is trying to take care of herself. That's part of it, but it's not all bad. I suggest hiring her as my assistant so we can keep an eye on her. This will also help you see how sincere she is. Worst case, we can use her to get information about everyone else, June suggested. Why not? Sam agreed. We'll have tracking software on her computers, tablets, and phones to see if she tries anything. We'll meet with her this afternoon and offer her a job after the meeting, if all goes well. Just make sure you think with your head, Rebecca teased her sister as they ended their meeting. Sam sat at his desk in shock as he listened to his sister talk later that day. He was surprised by how angry she was when she talked about their parents, brother, and especially Camila. She described how she had to pretend to be nice for the past 10 years because she had no other options and needed to stay on the family's good side. She also provided a lot of information about the family's company activities, accounts, and plans to try to regain control. When asked about her sudden change in sexual preference, she spoke very openly about her past. She confirmed that she was now completely out of the closet and proudly stated that she knew it would ruin any relationship with their very prejudiced family. I have been unhappy for the last 10 years. I'm sorry I didn't realize anything before you left, but by then it was too late. Even if you reject me now, I'm just happy I have the chance to finally apologize to you for my past behavior, Steph concluded. Fine, I accept your apologies. It seems genuine, and I'm willing to try and see if we can make some kind of relationship work. Unfortunately, there is a trust issue. Considering your past behavior towards me and your relationship with the rest of your family, I simply don't trust you. You have every reason to deceive us. Since I have pretty much taken everything from you, however, it seems my future sister-in-law thinks you deserve a chance. Keep in mind that we will be watching you very closely, and any mistake on your part will have serious consequences. Don't ruin it all. Well, what is SJ Enterprise? Steph asked. I've never heard of this company before. SJ stands for Samuel, Rebecca, and June. We own the company, so it didn't really matter what we offered for our own shares. In reality, we would still just be paying ourselves with our own money. You should have guessed this. Stephanie never moved out of our home. Instead, June moved in and let her girlfriend live with her. Sam and Becca continued to be amazed at how well their relationship was going. It seemed like Stephanie was really attracted to June and was working on developing their relationship. Stephanie accepted the position as June's assistant and seemed to enjoy working under her. Sam has really opened up to her, and Steph and Sam have developed a better brotherly relationship with each other. It helps that Steph and Sam are dating sisters and often see their respective partners. Yes, she was disowned by her parents and older brother when she happily told them that she was living with her girlfriend. She really enjoyed hearing her mother scream when she told them exactly who her girlfriend was. Jimmy and Camila could only watch as their former home was taken over by Dave and his fiancée. Feeling slightly sorry for Jimmy and Camila's children, they were innocent victims. Sam relented on some of the revenge he was planning for his brother and ex-wife. Instead of being unemployed forever and forcing them into poverty, Sam offered them a job. Of course, several months passed, and they were on the verge of being evicted from the cheap apartment they were renting before they finally swallowed their pride and agreed. Of course, the job they were offered was not what they had hoped for. Sam, being quite popular in the community, quietly made it clear that he would have nothing to do with anyone who hired any of his former family. As for Jacob and Evelyn, they tried to sue Sam to force him to leave and give them the company back. In truth, it was a weak case, but they managed to find a little-known law firm desperate for cases to take on the challenge. This lasted about 30 seconds after the first hearing. Jacob and Evelyn's two lawyers watched as the striking, red-haired woman entered the courtroom to the defendant's table. Then they looked at each other, collected their briefcases, and informed their clients that they were withdrawing from the case, practically running out of the courtroom. Later, when Jacob and his wife burst into the law office to ask what happened, the two lawyers informed them of the disaster in progress. "Don't you know who their lawyer is?" asked one of the partners. "Of course we know," Jacob replied. "This is the woman who represents the corporation that bought us out. She is also apparently the fiancée of our disinherited son." "Then you really don't know?" The second partner shook his head. "This is Rebecca Caulfield. Honestly, your case is really weak. You had a slim chance of winning anyway. We were hoping they'd find fighting in court too expensive and offer a settlement. If their lawyers review the case, they'll probably get it dismissed. Rebecca is different. Since she's engaged to your son, who you clearly dislike, it's personal for her. She won't just settle for winning the case. She'll humiliate and destroy you and then go after anyone helping you. We may be desperate for work, but not enough to be destroyed by taking on a lost cause against the most ruthless lawyer out there." With their funds low and no other options, the couple moved into a small one-bedroom apartment they could afford on Social Security. Evelyn spent her days as an unpaid nanny for Jimmy and Camila's children while Jimmy and Camila worked. Jacob spent his days sitting on the couch, complaining about his life. They had no contact with their youngest son or daughter and rarely saw Jimmy because of his work. "Come in, Mrs. Johnson," Sam said, smiling at his ex-wife and now daughter-in-law, Camila. "I was wondering if you could transfer Jimmy to work closer to us. He's been working out of state for months. We only see each other one day every 2 weeks, and he's usually too tired to do anything." "Sorry, Camila, but all the local jobs are filled. To move Jimmy closer, I'd have to move another worker to take his place. That wouldn't be fair to them and their family." The once attractive blonde began to sob. "Please, sir, Mr. Johnson, I know you despise us and are punishing us for what we did, but I am desperate. I haven't been with my husband for months. I'll do anything. Please, please let me see my husband." A familiar female voice came over the speakerphone. "Maybe she doesn't really mean it," another voice added. "From what she told me when I met with the family, I don't buy what she's selling." Sam was on a conference call with his fiancée, future sister-in-law, and sister. He knew Camila would ask for something, so he wanted them to hear and enjoy it. "Well, Camila, it looks like no one believes you. Be more specific about what you're willing to do. Frankly, I don't like the idea of your husband being any closer. If we could find work in Siberia, I'd send him there. Why would I consider moving him closer? At least now he can come home every other weekend. But it's an 8-hour drive. He gets home late on Friday, needs to rest on Saturday, and leaves again on Sunday morning. He's just a worker earning barely more than minimum wage, so he's too tired to do anything." "Camila, this isn't my problem. If things aren't working out, you can quit and find another job. You know that's not an option. We can't afford to move. No one will hire us after finding out what happened. I understand you hate us for what we did, but can't you show some compassion?" "Why should I? You two never had any compassion for me. You never showed any remorse for what you did. You only regret that I'm taking revenge." Seeing she couldn't sway her ex-husband, Camila relied on the only thing she had left. "I'll do anything, honestly." She hoped Sam would accept her offer and sleep with her. Sam was bigger than Jimmy, and she enjoyed the sex they had. She had only chosen Jimmy because he was set to inherit the company. In the dictionary, next to gold digger, was her picture. She thought she could win back her ex-husband and get rid of his fiancée. She was also upset about the lack of sex lately and believed she could entertain Sam if given the chance. She was only slightly concerned about the conversation being overheard by the fiancé and the other women. "Okay, Becca," Sam said. "How about this? You and I have discussed having a threesome with another woman. I doubt I'd want to return the favor, but I'd like to see if it makes any difference." Camila's horror intensified when June spoke. "Oh yeah, Steph and I also talked about picking up another woman and using her as our plaything for one night. Jimmy isn't back this weekend, so maybe you guys can play with her on Saturday and we can have her over on Sunday." Sam thought for a moment before answering. "That sounds like a plan. June, You and Steph can do whatever you want." "Great," June replied happily. On Monday morning, Camille somehow managed to hobble into work. She just hoped Sam would keep his end of the deal. "Good news," Steph said as Camille walked in. "Your husband will finish where he is this week and then return for the weekend. Next week, he will start building a new place here in town." Camille felt relieved, given her terrible relationship with them. She was worried they might back out of the deal. "You lousy jerk, you set me up!" Camille screamed as she burst into Sam's office on Thursday afternoon. She had just been served divorce papers. The papers included several explicit photos of Camille with multiple women and one man. The faces of everyone except Camille were carefully blurred. "Yes, he kicked me out of the apartment and declares that I am an unfit mother for children." Camille continued to yell. Her outburst lasted for another 10 minutes and attracted a sizable crowd, including Rebecca, June, and Stephanie. Despite her screams, Sam simply sat back in his chair, silently smiling. He didn't say anything until Camille finally calmed down and started crying. "Becca, as a company lawyer, what are my options for such serious charges brought against us by one of our cashiers?" "Well, Mr. Johnson, based on the evidence I've seen, she has no proof that you, I, or anyone else at the firm had anything to do with her behavior. My opinion is that she is in a very compromising position and is grasping at straws to find anything to save her reputation and strengthen her financially. My advice is to fire her for cause, for creating a hostile work environment. Our security cameras caught enough of her false accusations to justify this." Sam sighed. "Very good. Even though she hurt me when she left me for my brother, I hope that by helping them and hiring them when no one else would, I could somehow heal the rift in our family. It finally worked out when we hired Stephanie. Let it be so, Camille. I have no choice but to let you go. Please notify HR. They will explain your rights and options. Your final check will be delivered to you before departure." "But I have nowhere to go. Jimmy kicked me out and filed a restraining order. Without this job, I won't even be able to rent another apartment or get a hotel room for the night," she whined. Sure, she could move across the country, but what kind of life would that be? She wouldn't have the references to get any decent jobs. How would she explain the huge gap in her work experience? The best she could hope for was a minimum wage job that wouldn't support her and would never allow her to see her children again. Her next option was to live on the streets here and beg for spare change to survive. She would at least see her children from time to time, even if it was supervised visitation. Jacob and Evelyn lived the rest of their lives on the brink of poverty, subsisting only on their social security. Their hatred and anger prevented them from reaching out to Sam. Their fanaticism also prevented them from contacting their daughter. The only joy they found was watching their grandchildren born to their eldest son. Jimmy continued to work his low-paying job, working as a laborer for his brother's company. They explained to him that his chances of promotion were zero. He tried several times to find a better job, but was rejected each time. He didn't have the skills needed for any particular profession, and his background and business degree were tainted enough that no one wanted to take a chance on him. He tried dating for a while, but found very few women willing to spend time with a single father, who was a loser with very limited means. Sam and Rebecca got married and had 3 children. All 3 of their children were equally loved and would be equal heirs. There would be no favorites in this house. June and Stephanie also got married. Although their relationship began under strange circumstances, they fell in love unconditionally. Likewise, Stephanie and Sam also developed a strong relationship as brother and sister. Stephanie gave birth to 2 children. The donor was June's older brother, and they used artificial insemination to conceive. Thanks for listening to One Infidelity Hit. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop us a like.